Malkin picks his pocket. In on Fane, the shot, he scores!
And here comes Kane. He scores!
David Pouliot to McDavid. McDavid! Oh, what a move, what a goal!
Hoffman steps up with Perry in front.
You're listening to the Puck Guys Podcast, the best place for top hockey news and insight with, of course, a little West Coast bias. Now here are your hosts, Patrick Mahoney and Jason Lamb.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to a mini podcast at the Lamb household.
Who's tired? Raise your hand.
Oh, man, I'm not tired at all. I'm going to be tired tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You had your beer.
I've had 3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I gave them all to
You had your hockey game tonight, but we decided we were going to do a round 2 preview.
Yes.
Because we've never done it.
Yeah, I mean,
we've always done it once the series has already started.
Yeah, we're usually pretty slow on that uptake there, but we owe it to our fans.
Our 4th season in, I think we should finally do a legit preview before the season starts, or before the series starts.
Wow, why start to be good now?
Well, we got to do something different.
I guess so.
Got to make it good.
Well, let's do it really late on a Tuesday night.
Oh, man, it's today. So before we get on to the remaining 8 teams, we kind of clean up what happened this weekend from the remainder of the round 1 series. I mean, shocker, Blues Wild went to overtime. I thought the Wild were going to maybe win that one. Kind of lacking the superstar on that team, the offensive forward that's going to take over there. There's really they didn't have that.
St. Louis?
No, I'm talking about for the Wild. Like I thought they were going to take over and do that, but they were lacking that superstar power on that team. That team was, I think, overachieved under Bruce Boudreau on the back of Devin Dubnyk throughout the year, and they got some timely goal scoring.
Ran into hot goalie Jake Allen, ran into their former coach, Mike Yeo, which it seems like a lot of former coaches won because Alain Vigneault was a former coach of Montreal way back in the day. Not a full coach, but he was an assistant coach for Montreal.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, me neither until I found that out. But that happened. Yeo won, and then over St. Louis.
Actually, though, I don't think the place.
McClellan beat his San Jose
spoiler
Sharks.
alert.
Oh, sorry, we'll get there someday.
No, I just don't. I didn't think the Wild were going to let this one slip away in 5. I was really surprised that the Blues won this in 5 games.
Yeah,
really surprised.
I
Even Bruce Boudreau said the best team didn't win.
And I would have to agree with him. I think they ran into a really hot goalie, and I know Jake Allen always had that potential to do it, but a little bit of Dubnyk not quite being there and Jake Allen just playing out of his mind is pretty much what shut them down because he just did not give up very many goals, and Minnesota shot a ton of shots.
Well, it's like I told my buddy Dave, I was like, Jake Allen was playing like on an astral plane in the cosmos. He was like above and beyond anybody else in the entire NHL. He had no business doing it, but he found a way to get there.
Yeah.
Name another performance he's had like that. There's none. He's had nothing.
Oh, him. I thought you meant like he didn't play like anybody else because I'd say Pekka had a very similar, although I don't know. I think Jake Allen, I would say to some extent, Fleury had a lot of shots that he ended up stopping too, but nothing as much as Jake Allen saw and as much as he actually ended up stopping. So
the Blues go on to play the Preds, which we'll preview here in a bit. But let's get on to
the other one.
What ended up happening with the Oilers and the Sharks. That went on to Game 6 and the high flying future is now team, right?
Yeah,
and then they beat the old guard basically. The San Jose Sharks in 6 games. That Game 5 was a very telling story for how San Jose was going to look to me in Game 6, although the game was close. It's the McDavid show and the Draisaitl show, and they just had the Sharks had no answer. They look dead tired.
They look injured.
It's old.
Well, I mean, they're old, yes, but at the same time, they did deal with a lot of injuries at the worst
Jumbo
time.
Joe,
torn ACL, MCL. That pretty much means that leg doesn't work. So kudos for him to getting on
wrapped in some beard hair.
Yeah, that must be it. That's where all the strength comes from. So there's that. And then Marlowe was playing with a broken thumb. Couture,
broken mouth.
So he had
some horrific pictures.
Oh, they were brutal. So if you haven't seen what Logan Couture looked after
go on his Instagram.
He was the longest out and somehow tried to make it back, and then Cassian ran him over in the game. He came
clean
back.
hit.
It was a clean hit, but he completely ran him over. So it's just too many injuries at the wrong time for San Jose, and they ran into an upstart Oilers team that had some confidence and bigger players than they've had in the past, and they did what they were going to do and what we thought they would do.
The Oilers are what the league is going to be looking to become. They're going to become that young, fast team. Same could be said with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I agree, disagree. And part of my agree, disagree is the fact that you got generational players in Edmonton with McJesus and also in Toronto with Matthews. You don't get that every single...
No. But even starting from the back end, like their defense, Morgan Riley was great in this series. Jake Gardner was great in that series.
Neither one of those teams strike me as an amazing defensive team. They both have good young goalies and great offensive power and I won't say power, but offensive skill and a ton of speed. And that will take you fairly far, but as it did with Toronto, it didn't take you all that far. And I think Edmonton kind of lucked out a little bit. They got a banged-up San Jose team that really couldn't match them, physically, because Edmonton's a little bit more physical, and definitely couldn't keep up with their speed.
I mean, but what are you looking for, though? Just to spend a second on that, what I think is and what a lot of people think is like the second coming wave of what strategy. Mm-hmm. What are you looking for in a team? Like you look for a team that wants to keep the puck out of your zone. You get guys like PK Subban, Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns. That they score a lot of points and they might be on the ice when goals are scored, but they're the defenseman that gets the puck. The puck goes in the zone, they get it right out. Goes in the zone, they get it right out. Mm-hmm. There's no more stay-at-home heavy hitter. They want the puck out of their zone as fast as possible, and that's
moving
like the new wave.
Forwards.
That defenseman, Roman Josi, another example.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you want. You want really quick forwards with some skill, because the speed is the name of the game at this point.
The defense bringing it up to him, right?
Agreed, but those are far in between, and it's really tough on the defensive side to have a defenseman that is quick and knowledgeable and can play good defense when the puck does get hemmed in their zone, because you can't rely on that all the time. You're going to have to eventually be a good defenseman. So you have to have someone who's a good skater, good outlet guy, good on that offense, good on that speed, but also can play defense. And unfortunately, most of the time, it takes time to get that, which is what I think both Toronto and Edmonton lack a little bit. Is even if they have young, good moving defensemen, they're not super great defense. So defensively, I should say that they don't really kind of control that side of things. But if you're looking for pure offense and to take advantage of maybe a slower aging defensive core like San Jose, Edmonton's going to take advantage of that. Toronto gave Washington a whole bunch of fits because of their speed, and Washington was able to curve that because they had enough of that skill and defensive prowess to make that happen. But moving forward, I mean, you want speed and skill.
That's what I thought, too, for that series. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Sharks match up against the Ducks. The Oilers match up against the Ducks. Let's move on to the Sens and Bruins, which we call the downer of the playoffs.
Most
boring.
Was
a boring game.
Winner of most boring.
But, I mean, the most exciting player in that series is Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
Erik Karlsson, just
he only
outstanding.
Had 6 assists. No goals. But
I mean, you look at the control that guy had in the play. It was absurd.
Hell of that one pass.
The aerial pass.
Oh,
it was insane. It's like 100 and some odd feet, 10 feet in the air.
Yeah. Bobby Ryan steps up a little bit, gets a couple of game winners.
And guess who assisted on all 4 of his goals? Erik Karlsson.
Oh, damn. You didn't give me a chance to guess. I guess. All right. Yeah. So obviously, it revolves around him.
Oh yeah, that's what the whole team revolves around. They're all feeding off him, and they all want to play hard for Craig Anderson in net, who's having he's having a hard time at home with his wife going through cancer. So they all said they're there for him. They're going to move on. They beat the Bruins in 6 games. They're going to move on and play the Rangers, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting series. I think it's going to be a much different series for the Senators. But the Caps end up beating the Leaf, as you kind of got to that a little bit ago. Yeah. The Caps were just too much. But this was a tight series. I mean, 5 overtimes.
Toronto led the series 2-1.
5 overtimes.
5 of the 6 games are overtimes. All of them were by 1 goal. Even when Washington had a sizable lead, they really had to hang on for dear life there in Game 4, I think it was. Game 5. They had to hang on for dear life just to eke out a regulation win. So that's a big kudos to Toronto. They did exactly what you would hope a team in a quick rebuild could do, is get playoff experience, get those young guys in there, let them experience what it takes to get into the playoffs. Then the fact that they can push the President Trophy winner that far and make it that long. And I think that tied a NHL record for how many overtimes in a series, let alone the entire NHL set a new record for how many overtime games happened in the first round.
Even on that
18.
day, the Bruins game went to OT.
And then the Washington
Caps, Toronto,
games.
and then the Wild and Blues.
And that's crazy to think about, that it set an NHL record for how many overtime games in round 1, considering there were 2 sweeps and no game 7s.
Oh, it's incredible. No game 7s.
Yeah.
So that's the way it is how the first round of the series is wrapped up there. Mm-hmm. Like you said, most of them ended in 6 games, other than the sweeps, and then the 5-gamer with the Blues and the Wild. So let's talk Caps and their arch nemesis, Sidney Crosby, the Pittsburgh Penguins in round 2. Let's preview that series first. Yeah,
so for the most part, Pittsburgh is pretty much just owned Washington. They have an all-time playoff record of 8-1, and the last 2 have featured Ovechkin and Crosby, 2009 and
what a storyline is going to be this year again, right?
And it's always the second round that they seem to meet. Here's kind of a fun little fact, is the 2 times they've met, Pittsburgh has won both of those and then gone on to win the Stanley Cup. They meet both times in the second round. So, once again, second round, who knows? But at this point, compared to seasons past, Washington is they both in the regular season technically third and fourth, but both had the exact same power play percentage, and that kind of continued in the first round of the playoffs. Both teams looked really strong on their power plays, well over their season average.
It was like 30% for Pittsburgh against Columbus, right?
Yeah, and it was very similar. I think it was like 30% for Washington. So, I mean, they continued to do a lot better in the playoffs. Ovi is scoring. That's good, even though Washington has kind of relied a lot more this season on spreading that offense around. Oshie at 32 goals, Ovechkin 33. And even Oshie in the playoffs has produced quite a bit. Ovechkin still has 3 goals in 6 games. That's great. Their power play looks good. They have more depth than last year. The only thing is, even though they've looked good, Holtby, and I love Holtby, he's looked average. So the games he's played against Toronto, he didn't seem to do all that great. He did finish with a .925 save percentage, which is
good.
Yeah, it was great. It was what you want from a goalie, but it just didn't quite have the feel of Holtby that we saw in the regular season.
He came into his own in Game 5 and Game 6.
Yeah,
he played really well.
He finally kind of started to home it in just a little bit, but he's definitely going to have to be better against a better team than Toronto, and that's Pittsburgh. So he's going to have a lot more of that finish skill, but I think he does better against the guys he knows and not the young kids that it's really hard to read when they're going to shoot or how they're going to do it, or the running gun that is Toronto. I think Pittsburgh's a little bit more of the structured speed, and I think Holtby can do better, but he's going to have to be. And also, Washington is going to have to handle the speed better. They did not handle speed well against Toronto. The problem is Pittsburgh has a ton of speed, too.
Well, I mean, but Pittsburgh also has that leaky defense. They let in an average of like plus 37 or 38 shots a game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they were just saved on the back of Marc-Andre Fleury at that point.
Yeah, Fleury outplayed Bobrovsky 110%.
100%. Yeah, except for that one game. He had one bad game.
One bad game, but that happens.
Absolutely. It's happened in like a number of series as we talked pre-show. You're playing against Malkin, 2 goals, 9 assists. Sidney Crosby, who's made Jake Gunstone look really, really, really good on his
right?
way. He had 5 goals in the first series, a hat trick in one of those games.
Leads the NHL, I believe.
It's a tough series to break down because you got the mental aspect of the Caps never really getting over the hump, and it's always coming at the hands of Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
like Pittsburgh is their stopping block, and that's why I picked Columbus over Pittsburgh in the beginning, because I'm like, okay, if Columbus beats Pittsburgh, the Capitals are going to just cut right through the Jackets and have no problem on their way to the Conference Finals. But the X factor in all of this for me is how Fleury's going to play.
Yeah,
and
if Matt Murray can come back,
right? But how is Fleury going to play?
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be facing. I mean, he's not his.
He's inconsistent usually in the playoffs, and sometimes he kind of pulls it out. 2009 was a good example of that. Sometimes it's not really his fault, but then series to series, he can have a great series, and then he could have just a complete stinker. And I feel that Columbus was more focused on being physical than it was.
Oh, they tried to get under their skin. The Matt Calvert hit is just dirty.
Yeah, so I feel that Washington is more disciplined and spread over more lines that they can at any point really kind of get to Fleury, and especially if Pittsburgh starts taking penalties and Washington gets that chance to have that explosive power play, get in there and do some damage. I think Fleury, though I love him and I like the way he plays, sometimes he's just really inconsistent. And that's a big question mark. And if Matt Murray cannot play that whole series, I have a hard time thinking Fleury would stand up to Washington, who has all the more reason to actually push more than Pittsburgh does, given that Pittsburgh has done so well in the past and might be a little complacent after the first round domination of Columbus.
So what do you have this series at?
I have Washington in 7.
Me too.
Yes.
I have Washington in I have Caps in 6. Not
6.
7.
I just don't think I was thinking maybe Washington in 6, try and close it out, but I'd find it very hard for them to close it out in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, I think, might show up. And I think if they have a game in Washington, that crowd is ready for Game 7 and for Washington to finally come over the hump, much like St. Louis did last year against Chicago, and much like Nashville did this year against Chicago. So,
barring Anaheim getting in the way, this is Ovi's year. That's
what I want.
This is Ovi's year.
Yeah, I feel like he's finally at that point where the team is far better, and it's not so focused on shutting him down. Is that you got to shut down the Capitals? You don't get to shut down Ovechkin. You got to shut down the Capitals.
Well, yeah, remember
which before is if you shut down Ovechkin, you've shut down the Capitals.
Well, yeah, Backstrom had that one guy he passed to. Now he's got Oshie in the slot in the power play.
Yeah, and you added Shattenkirk, Carlson's in there. I wouldn't Alsner if he gets in there. He's been injured a little bit, but if he gets in there, I mean, they got power play status everywhere that can really kind of jump in there. And so I feel they got a lot more depth. I mean, Tom Wilson scoring 3 goals a series.
Oh,
now.
that's unreal. That's like Cassian scoring for the Oilers. So we both have the Caps winning this series and moving on to the conference finals. So let's preview the series of who they'd be playing in the next round,
which would be
the Sens and the Rangers.
The Rangers. So the feel-good story, I would say, for the most part, is the Bill Masterson nominee, Craig Anderson, the goalie for the Ottawa Senators. Really hope that it could be a Cinderella story for him. Carlson has been an amazing defenseman who's a Norris candidate defenseman as well. But it all starts and stops with him. And he's dealing with 2 hairline fractures in his heel.
Oh, yeah. Brutal. Yeah, in his heel.
Yeah. So they also played a Boston team that was definitely kind of treading water. Some good games, some bad games. They took a 3-1 lead, lost overtime, and then ended up winning in overtime. Bobby Ryan had a couple of game-winning goals. The problem is they're going to run into Lundqvist. They're going to run into Lundqvist. They're going to run into the best wild card team that you've seen in ever. And that team is ready to win and not going to take them lightly. And up and down is just better than what Boston brought to Ottawa. It's not going to be easy by any stretch, I would think, but I think the Rangers and the way Lundqvist played so well against what was considered a really good Montreal team and against his counterpart, Carey Price, I just feel that they can shut down Ottawa much, much better. I feel that they are a little bit better defensively, put in the offensive numbers, and Lundqvist is just going to be that X factor that I don't think, although Craig Anderson is good, he's not facing the same team.
I'm not really worried about the defense on Ottawa. I think the Ottawa defense and the Rangers defense are pretty equal. I feel like Ryan McDonough is the best defenseman on the Rangers, and after that, you're kind of like, eh. And then you look at Erik Karlsson; he's obviously like legend, superstar status. And look at the rest of those guys, like, eh. And then you get to the goaltending, you kind of have to pick Henrik over Anderson, and then you have to look at the forward group and that Ranger forward group. If they can get their game going, If Chris Kreider can pick his game up and Zuccarello can keep his game going and Nash finds a scoring touch in this series, that's going to prove to be a huge problem for the Ottawa Senators. Yeah. I don't see how Anderson's fairy tale story continues in this series. I have a hard time picking against Hank. I really difficult time picking against Henrik Lundqvist. He had a hell of a first round too.
Yeah. The only thing is that maybe Ottawa, they did a really good job of playing a boring hockey. They shut down Boston.
How many effing icings were in those games too?
Yeah, I mean, there not only that, they did a good job of they did a good job of the trap. They pretty much forced Boston to go around, and Boston didn't have speed. I think the Rangers have more speed, a little bit more skill to get around that than Boston would have. So I feel that's another reason the Rangers would probably do it. So I got the Rangers in 5 games. What do you got?
I also have the Rangers in 5. I don't see the Sens getting out of this. As much as I would like to see the Rangers lose, just I don't know.
Why?
Never really liked him.
Okay.
I like Erik Karlsson a lot, and I like Henrik Lundqvist too. But Erik Karlsson,
conquistador.
I know. And then then it's hard not to root for the story with Craig Anderson moving on. Yeah. But I really feel like it's going to be Rangers and Caps in the conference finals, and whoever obviously wins that goes for the cup. So that'll wrap up the East Coast. Let's get over to the West, where the Predators are going to be taking on the Blues. Goaltending.
That's all it is.
Exactly what you look at here. For me, when you look at this series right away, it's kind of like you're getting the Pekka Rinne of old and the Jake Allen that no one's ever seen before going into the series. I've
seen it.
Both these guys are incredible. They're on incredible runs. Then you look at the forward groups. Tarasenko is the underlying X factor for me. He's a superstar. He's what the offense is going to drive out of there in St. Louis. But you look at the forward group over in Nashville, they're not too bad. Philip Forsberg picked his game up at the end of the year, and now they have Ryan Johansson as well. And you throw in guys like Mike Fisher and Arvidsson, who's had a great year. And then you're getting timely goals by guys, rookies by Kevin Fiala in overtime over the Chicago Blackhawks. This is not an easy team for the Blues to look at after getting through the Wild. And as good as Ryan Suter is on defense, chewing up minutes like 30 minutes a night for the Wild, you have this incredible depth of puck-moving defensemen in Nashville who are I think they're the best defensemen in the league, best defensive group.
Yeah, core, for sure.
And then with the way Rinne's playing, if he keeps this up, I don't see it being a problem for the Preds. I really don't. As hot as Jake Allen is, I think the Blues really screwed themselves by getting rid of Kevin Shattenkirk and then finding himself in this position here. I just don't see them having enough of Jake Allen to get past Pekka Rinne and the Preds.
I agree on that defensive aspect. It definitely goes to Nashville's advantage moving forward. They definitely have a ton of confidence after sweeping the first ever sweep.
I mean, how high are those guys right now, right?
Oh, my gosh. Not only to sweep for the first time in franchise history, but to your arch nemesis. The guys, you don't let their fans come into your house because you won't sell them tickets. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they got that monkey off their back this season. The one thing that the thing is that everyone kind of knows Nashville has some of that offensive spark, and then their defense is really underrated. And then I think the biggest thing that people don't realize about Nashville is they are physical. They hit. That's what surprised the hell out of me when we played in the first round last season, is how physical we got hit all over the place. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it took it to 7 games, and then they got another physical round against San Jose before they lost in 7 games. So they kind of match up everywhere. They can hit with you if you want to hit. They can match you in speed and skill. And they can match you up if you want to have a defensive shutdown thing. So my biggest question is just, how is Pekka Rinne going to play? He played out of his mind, well over what he normally does in the playoffs. He's not really great in the playoffs, a .500 goalie usually, and he has a sweep against Chicago. Good confidence. Sometimes that's all you need as a goalie, but if you start seeing chinks in the armor, you might start seeing Nashville maybe falter a little bit, but there's just not enough on the St. Louis side to overcome all of the pluses on the Nashville side. So I don't think that it's going to happen. Jake Allen is a great goalie, but he had to stand on his head just to win games 2-1 and 1-0 in that series against Minnesota. I don't think he has the same luck against Nashville. I have Nashville actually in about 5.
I had Nashville in 5 as well, so we're on the same track.
There we go.
It's hard to add anything to that. It's what people don't understand is, and by people I mean like average hockey fans.
What do you mean, you people?
So maybe the same as us.
Okay.
Most of people like us don't understand is that to play 82 games as a team and then win a President's Trophy or finish in the playoffs, it's a great feat. But all you're really doing is qualifying for the Stanley Cup to get into the playoffs, and it's easier, I think, to go on stretches and having great pace in an 82 game season than it is to do in the playoffs. That being said, I think that Jake Allen and his stretch here, it's nothing he's ever done before. It's not going to be replicated against the Preds.
He's never really had the chance, though. He's never been that ace in the hole that they've had.
His game changed when Hitchcock left, right?
So
we talked about that last week.
And their goaltending coach.
So it's all different, but there's no way he's going to keep it up. I don't think anyone can keep up the pace he's putting on.
Not what Nashville can bring. In addition to that, Nashville, little fun fact here, is the only number 8 seed to ever sweep the top seed in the NHL playoffs ever.
Really?
Yeah, no number 8 seed has ever swept the number 1 seed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what's funny is Patty Kane even said that maybe we weren't as good as we thought we were. He said that post game too.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes already happening in Chicago that we'll get to in our next podcast. Preview stuff.
They're starting to clean up. But I had the Preds. I had the Preds at 5. I think that's going to be just a quick series. Yeah. I don't think that they're going to have a problem with it. Let's get on to the Ducks and the Edmonton Oilers.
The only one that matters, I guess,
to us, and maybe like 18,000 people that go watch Ducks games. And that's it.
They don't show up to the games.
Not all of them, especially not during the regular season.
Nope.
They like to sell their tickets to high interest teams like the Chicago Blackhawks.
Maybe they're smarter than us. Maybe we should be doing that. Buying tickets early and then
that's not smart. You should go to the games, waste your money. So this is, as much as I told you I wanted the Oilers to play the Ducks because I feel like the Ducks had a better chance. I still think that. It's just predicated on a lot of ifs. And goddamn, the Oilers are a scary team. They're scary for a number of reasons, not just McDavid, but the fact that everyone focuses on McJesus.
Thank you.
And you have Leon Draisaitl scoring goals.
Yeah.
You have guys like Desharnais winning games in overtime. You have guys like Clefbaum at the point launching bombs and forcing OT against the Sharks. The Sharks, I know they're a beat-up veteran group going in, as we discussed earlier, but they're not bad. And Marc-Edouard Vlasic's one of the best in the NHL at shutting down people as a shutdown defenseman playing against the top guys. And McDavid still had 4 points. It's scary. It's just scary going into it. I think that the Oilers have a really good chance. Have a really, really good chance against the Ducks. But the thing that I was saying was my decision on who's going to win this series and what it's based on is, do the Ducks get Cam Fowler back? Do the Ducks give Sami Vatanen back? Are we going to put guys in the press box like Corbinian Holzer, or Shea Theodore and Brandon Montour? Are they going to be able to stay in this series and keep up with the Oilers' pace? Because I know they showed it really, really well against the Flames, but the Flames had a really crummy bottom 6, and the Oilers don't. This is a much different animal for the Ducks than the Flames were.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We're not going to get the benefit of having a really crappy Brian Elliott in net. I think Cam Talbot's going to be a little bit better. He's also played a ton of hockey that he's not used to playing. He's played 73 regular season games plus the 6 playoff games, and he had a really bad one where he got pulled. Like I said, like we've said, almost every goalie, with some exceptions, had crummy games here and there. I don't think Cam Talbot is as scary to us as he might be to San Jose, but I feel that the Ducks, especially the way that Cam Fowler seems to be coming back from his knee injury, Vatanen is a possibility, Lindholm's even a possibility, and we did what we did against Calgary without those guys. The young guys stood up. Theodore had 2 goals, 3 assists, tied for team league in points with Getzlaf and others. So I feel that they can elevate their game. We have a very young, mobile defense, and what I feel will help us against an Edmonton team is that we can transition out what Edmonton got to do against San Jose. San Jose, if they got the puck in their own defensive zone, it was quickly to the forwards and make the forwards do something and make things happen. Their forwards were depleted. Edmonton kind of pounced on that and got some chances and got some goals. I feel the Ducks on defense have the option of either passing it out to the wings or skilled forwards who aren't injured, or making their own move out of the defensive zone. And I think that mobileness, that ability to get the puck out quicker than what Edmonton got to see, is that they won't get to do that forechecking, that heavy hitting that they got to do against San Jose, where San Jose kind of looked like they were kind of almost getting beat down a little bit with the likes of Cassian, Lucic, and Maroon. So I feel getting the Ducks healthy on the back end on defense, even if you can't get Fowler or you can't get Lindholm, I think Tador and Montour are young, great puck-moving defensemen that can kind of counter that as well. And I think we can exploit Talbot, not to the extent that Elliott was exploited, but that we can score enough goals and win enough of those battles, especially down the middle with us as far as forward goes, with Getzlaf, Kesler, Vermette, Thompson, all those guys. It doesn't matter how we match up on the road. We've got enough great centers to kind of keep the pressure in that end. If we can keep it down there, then we win games.
I mean, you look at the Sharks. They had the same thing with Pavelski, Thornton, Couture covering. Those are no slouches.
Mostly injured.
Okay, but they're also. I mean,
Couture and Thornton were completely gone.
But you really think that means that McDavid runs wild? I mean, they still have Vlasic. The Ducks don't have that workhorse defenseman that the Sharks had, right?
Oh, it's a workhorse defenseman, Vlasic.
Yeah, he's a great defender.
Dude, put in Cam Fowler over.
Granted, they still lost. What I'm saying is the Ducks don't have that big defenseman that everyone always talks about that wins cups. That the team that's going to wins always has that.
I think Cam Fowler is that ace, in my opinion. The way he's played prior to his injury, you haven't seen him in 2 or 3 weeks, but that's because he's recovering from a horrific knee injury. Prior to that, he was our best defenseman, hands down. Yeah, now he's not really the biggest shutdown guy, but that's not him. His game is not to brutalize the offensive players. It's to outskate them, outwork them, and make smarter plays. The Ducks' game is their centers who can shut down the other forwards. And I think Kesler, who's a Selke Trophy nominee and winner in the past, is going to be able to be a thorn in the side. And whether it's Kesler or it's Getzlaf or it's Vermette, we can win faceoffs, control that play a little bit more. And you can see it, even though you say McDavid got the 4 points or whatever he had. One of those, he only had 2 goals. One of them was an empty net.
Right.
At the end of this, the end of the game, last second or something like that. He was held in check on a San Jose team that wasn't necessarily in the best shape to even defend him. Imagine a team that has forwards that is ready for it and break it, and to hold him at bay. And I think Gibson kind of really showed his A game after he had a bad one, really kind of stepped up in that game 4. See how he does moving forward. But even if he falters, we got Bernier. Who do they have after Cam Talbot? The guy who
I can't pronounce his name, actually.
The guy who played 7 games in the regular season. Yeah, he'll be great.
So you don't have a problem with McDavid and Draisaitl going up against the Ducks right now?
It's not going to be easy. I'm not trying to paint it that way. What I am saying is that the Ducks are more than capable, I feel, of handling a upstart Edmonton team that actually got in the playoffs, did great in the beginning, did a little bit better than Toronto, but they're going to run into a much stiffer opponent and one that can defend better than San Jose could because of how injured San Jose was. If San Jose wasn't that injured, it took 6 games, and look how injured San Jose was. If they weren't that injured, do you think Edmonton would have ran through the way they did?
Are you basing any of your thoughts on this series on if this defense core comes back healthy for the Ducks? Are you not concerned about it?
I'm not as concerned. Seeing how we did well against a speedy transition team like Calgary and how...
but we won that game because of voodoo. I mean, there was like some weird curse in Anaheim where they don't win, and then Elliott blew every single game.
That's one, but then the one guy you had to pay attention to was Gaudreau, and he had 2 assists in the whole series, and they're both power plays, and we got...
But Monahan, 4 goals in that series.
Yeah, and so hopefully Draisaitl doesn't do that.
That's what I'm thinking, is like you shut down the main guy, but then you have his...
But the Ducks aren't focusing on McDavid, McJesus. He's there, and he's someone you pay attention to. But if you talk to, as Getzlaf,
Kessler,
but also Getzlaf has said, is like, listen, he's the guy. You got to pay attention. When he's out there, pay attention to him. You don't let him just go do whatever he wants. But at the same time, you don't go like, where is he? Where is he? I got to go this way. Oh, there he is. I'm going to go over here. You just don't do that. So you do what you can to keep him to the side, but you pay attention to every single line. It's the Ducks versus the Oilers. It's not Kesler versus McJesus.
So I look at the forward groups, and I would say that the scoring group would have to go to Edmonton. Look at the defense. You put it on Anaheim. Granted, they're healthy. And the goaltending you put on Anaheim. I would think both goaltending and defense is the superior component for the Ducks over the Oilers. I'm really concerned about the Ducks being able to contain that forward group, though. Because not only are they fast, but like you said, they had that physical aspect to that game. And these games could get nasty, which the Ducks like to play. So they could go right into Carlisle's mentality, which he loves too. I have the Ducks winning this in 7 games. I don't, and that's just because I'm like 51% Anaheim, 41% Oilers. And that's not because
does that add up? That's 92%.
51-49?
You said 41.
I said 49.
You said 41.
We'll rewind it later. And
all right, well, we'll go back. That's all right. We'll just start the podcast over.
Yeah, scrap it. No, 7 games. I have Anaheim winning by a slight edge. I don't think this is going to be a quick series at all. It's great the Ducks have home ice. I think that's going to help them too for Carlisle in his matchup game. It's not showtime yet for the Oilers. And I think the Ducks have unfinished business in moving on to the conference finals. And playing against the Predators and getting revenge there will be something we'll be talking about here in about a week or so. Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting series. I can't wait for tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. And I have the Ducks winning this one. I have them in 6. I just feel that they won't wait till Game 7. And like I said, my theory is that we're able to contain McDavid a lot better than people think we will. I think Carlisle has done a very good job of matching up, but the fact that we have that depth down the center, even when we go on the road, I don't feel it's a bad matchup, whatever center we have out there against him, minus the 4th line. But I feel that Cam Talbot kind of benefited from an injured San Jose team, and I feel that we will provide a better offense that he's probably not ready for. He's played all 5 games against us this season, and we've done a good job. We went 2-1-2, even though Edmonton went 3-2. So they technically had a winning record. We technically had a winning record. But I feel that Edmonton is no slouch, and they have hard, heavy-hitting guys, and that Cassian, Lucic, and Maroon are not going to let us just kind of run over, and Arnell Nurse.
These are going to be 3-2 games.
Yeah, so I mean, these will be rough. Punch them out, see how it kind of goes. And the Ducks, I think all of them were 1-goal games, except for the last game that was a 3-1 win with an empty netter late. So once again, it's not like we dominated Calgary, and I don't think we're going to really dominate much in Edmonton, but at the same time, I just feel that we'll have enough of that and that experience and that determination where Edmonton is kind of shooting for the stars. If they fall short, hey, it's better than not shooting at all.
That's it's scary though to me. That team is just
go
too
anyways.
scary.
Yeah, once again,
they're too talented.
What ifs
up in that forward group, and I don't know. It's scary. I feel like it's going to be a tight, checking, physical series, low scoring. I just favor the Ducks in this series over defense and goaltending. But we'll see how it goes. Yep. Game 1 is tomorrow in Honda Center, man. Looking forward to that. And I think that wraps up, man. We're not doing any news today. We're only doing preview for the second round. We thank you guys for tuning into this mini podcast. A little over half an hour. We'll do our regular show this week and catch you guys up on the rest of the league news and then update the rest of these series. I'm ready to go to bed. All right. And I'll see you when I see you. Have a good night. Thanks for listening, guys. You know where to find us: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, the Puck Guys Podcast. We always could love to hear. Oh my God, I can't even talk right now. Love to hear from you. Send us an email, thepuckguys@gmail.com. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye, guys.